What's up, everyone? Aaron Nagler here with Nick Viall. That's right. It's the second time we're talking some Packers, except this time, Nick, we actually have some football to talk about, not just our hopes and dreams and prayers for a 2020 season even to happen, which now we're a little over a week away. You have obviously been obsessively consuming everything coming out of Packers training camp. What is your feel? What is your hope and dream as a Packers fan heading into 2020?
I'm a little disappointed you didn't give me daily updates on catch and sack predictions, but I appreciate why you did.
Oh, yeah, for anyone who doesn't know what Nick's talking about, he literally sent, what was it? I think I was actually at practice when you gave me a rundown of over-unders you demanded I fill out at that moment.
Yeah, and then the next day I asked for an update.
But update, right? Just seeing as whatever had transpired on the practice field that afternoon.
Listen, every offseason I am definitely – a classic Packer fan that I have a lot of optimism for the team. Last year, I think, was maybe the first year in some time that I didn't have as much optimism. New coach, they was 2 years out
new
of the
system.
playoffs.
Who knows what
New
Rodgers
system,
is going to be like?
What's going on? And then they go 13-3. So, who knows?
And you're back.
And I'm back. But listen, the Packers are a darling team for aggression. The hot aggression pick. And
oh, yeah.
I honestly think that's a terrible pick as far as that. I think I could make a very strong case for why that's not going to happen.
All right. Well, the floor is yours, sir. Why won't the Packers regress? Because I think they will in some cases, in some areas.
Well,
but
if we're talking record, sure. Like they were 13-3. So I'm not basing this off what their final record will be. I understand that there's if they go 9-7, no one's going to argue that they were better. But if they're 12-4 or 11-5 or listen, they won a lot of what are some of the reasons they think people are going to regress? Like the analytics people say, well, they didn't play like a 13-3 team. They won a lot of close
don't get
games.
me started on that.
Like
I just had an whole hour-long argument with PFF about that.
Their record for close games was like 9-1 or whatever.
Well, but the close games thing, I understand that as a legit criticism because look, it's not even a criticism, but you have to think in the NFL, the ball bounces a certain way. You get a certain call from a ref or whatever. You win the majority of those games. That is not something you can count on again.
Totally, but
I think that's
I totally agree with you. I just don't take that stat at like face value, right? Because there's so many other variables that go into things. For example, like I don't remember exactly, but there were a lot of those games that like might have finished close, but maybe the Packers were up by 10. There are definitely they were a team last year. Just the eye test. They seem like the Minnesota game is a perfect example. They just couldn't like break open games. They were a 13-3 team that constantly beat themselves. False starts, delay of games,
getting into long down a distance, especially early in the year.
I agree with you. I mean, they didn't look like a 13-3 team. They looked sloppy. They looked inconsistent, and they ended up being 13-3. So what I'm saying is, year two of an offense, right? I think that's a huge thing for this team.
Yeah, the continuity will play big time, especially after having no offseason and no preseason games.
Yeah, you have a lot of young guys. So what I'm saying is I'm expecting the Packers to have this, pretty still youthful team that is now together for one more year, have this cohesiveness. And so what I'm saying, it's just as likely that they, instead of winning games by 4, they're going to win by 7 or 8, that they're going to stop beating themselves, that they're going to, for example, they're a defense.
I love this optimism. Yeah. I love it because it's like the only place I've heard it. I love it. I'm all in.
They're a defense. I think their defense has a chance to be special. They certainly invested a lot in this young athletic talent. And how did the defense beat themselves last year? Like minus obviously the San Francisco game, they gave up big plays, right? Big plays, guys missing assignments.
Between the 20s was a real issue. Yeah,
you hear a lot of guys talking, about the defense playing cohesive and together, and not only knowing what their assignments are, but others. So I think that's just as likely. And then you have another aspect of they didn't have the big free agent spend, but there's a ton of second, third year players that we expect them to take the next step. There's no guarantees there, but I will say early signs out of camp, it seems like all the right guys are the ones who seem to be looking like they're doing things.
Zero question. And I think the headliner there is Rashan Gary,
right?
Where you're talking about a kid who could barely get on the field for much of last year, and you knew you needed to be patient. It was hard because he was picked so high. You want immediate returns. As a fan, you're thinking he's going to be out there and he's going to be dominant right away. But I'll tell you what, from what we've seen so far this summer, and hopefully we'll see starting week 1, it's a very different player, a guy who is slimmed down. He's actually got a few counter rush moves now as opposed to just the bull rush. I'm really excited for Gary.
Yeah, what if, is it that out of the question that by the end of the year, Gary's in the conversation with the Smith brothers of being 1A, B, and C? Like, is that
no question about it. In fact, I'll take you one further, and this may sound like sacrilege, but I think Gary could push Preston Smith for playing time as the year goes on.
Well, I mean,
like just to be the front, maybe not to be the starter, because I think that's why Preston was signed and he'll continue to in that role. But I think you're going to see more and more of Gary on the field in favor of Preston as the season goes on, if he develops the way it looks like he will.
Or more realistically, I mean, like, you know, if these guys are all that good, you know, Penn just finds a way to have them all on the field. You know, you move Za'Darius around.
Especially on
even Gary,
downs,
even Gary's strong enough to maybe line up in different spots. I mean, Gary was solid against the run last year. He seems like he knows how to hold the edge. So, like, you know, you expect a bump from Savage. You expect, you know, like, you know, injury. I will say that for me, the biggest reason why I can see the Packers regress is because they were insanely healthy last year, and that luck is unlikely to keep
You can
up.
never count on that. Exactly.
Yeah. So,
especially when it was a sense of probably the healthiest they had been since 2014, if not like back to 2008.
Easily since 2014, and like this, the likelihood of that happening is not
slim.
Great. Yeah. So
right.
So that I think that's definitely the biggest reason. But I definitely like cohesiveness in Matt LaFleur's offense. You know, and then you look at the offensive side of the ball. If MVS and Allen Lazard both take a step up, and I don't, you know, maybe neither of them become, you know, great receivers, but man, if MVS takes this leap that Rodgers is talking about, and Lazard was solid, he takes another leap, and again, everyone's just more cohesive. Devontae Adams is going to Devontae Adams, and he missed 4 games. And, you know, you could argue 6 because he wasn't really Devontae Adams, and maybe until the playoffs.
Those first couple games back, no doubt.
You know, and so then, you know, I'm really excited about the tight end position. Maybe the only one you want to see more from right now is Jay Sternberger, you know, but, you know, he could.
Yeah, but I keep hearing that. But it's like, can we just recognize the fact that the man
he was out?
Literally had COVID-19?
Yeah.
Literally had the virus.
There's no off season. Yeah, exactly.
And then shortly after having the virus and clearing it from his body, was out on a football practice field doing football.
I couldn't agree more.
I mean, that's amazing to me.
I couldn't agree more. And everyone keeps saying that he had like a red shirt year. I mean, he missed a lot of the year, but towards the end of the season,
he was hurt.
on the field.
He had some really unfortunate injuries, you know, between the cheap shot he took against the Texans in practice, and then, you know, hurting himself again during this. Like, you understand it. You know, I understand why he didn't have a ton of production. He wasn't there.
I'm on the other flip side. I'm like, but he still played meaningful snaps at the end of the year, and that matters. He didn't
he talked shit at Jadeveon Clowney in a playoff game. I mean, that's got to be worth something.
I just like the idea that he hasn't done anything. He's gonna have a slow start, but like between him and Big Bob. And I know your guy Josiah, whatever his name is,
DeGuara. Well, he's gonna be slow going. I think they're gonna be asked. They're asking him to do a lot, and it's going to take him some time to round into shape. But I'm telling you, man, you just wait. By the end of the year, he's going to be a legitimate part/weapon for this offense.
You said the word. I think they have more than last year. Again, just there's more weapons, there's more options for Rodgers, and all of these guys, other than the rookies, are just guys who should know what they're doing a little bit better. And
I think the real X factor is going to be Tyler Ervin. I think, I don't think it's any secret. We've not been allowed to talk a lot about what he's doing as far as in the offense because of the restrictions they put on us. But, man, they're going to utilize him all over the place. And I don't think it's a question of they're going to feed him, but he is going to be a real chess piece.
I want to be optimistic about that, but who was the running back a few years ago that like they found literally off the street who was great in the playoffs? He was like worked at a car dealership, and then
DeJuan Harris.
Yeah, McCarthy was super excited about it. He's going to be a big part of the offense.
But then they drafted Eddie Lacy.
No, but
that's
even
happened.
It was but Eddie Lacy's rookie year, and Mike McCarthy was like, this guy
Juwan's going to have a great year. I know,
and then he got hurt.
Eddie balled out. You know, it's all right.
No, it ended up being fine.
You can't take that away from Juwan.
I'm not.
Juwan's my boy. I love him.
No, he got hurt. I'm saying, but like I feel like the Irving guy, he's just. I mean, if they use him too much,
you're just scared he's going to get hurt because he's little.
Yes, 100%. But yes, I know. I think I am. I think there's just a look at what the Niners did last year. It's every offseason we have these power rankings and it's all based off of last year's and a draft.
That's why I ignore them.
And if you're the Dallas Cowboys, you're always up in the top 5 because you're the Dallas Cowboys. Although I do think Mike McCarthy is solid.
He gives him a bump, I think, a little bit. Sure.
Yeah, I do think he'll do well. But
right.
The Niners. They finally got this return on investment from all their young teams and young players rather.
Right.
And listen, if the Packers did a good job drafting and developing their players, and these guys step up, I think they could be a real force. If they don't get any better, they were still 13-3 last year. Granted, they got lucky a couple times, so then they might regress.
Sure. But what team doesn't at some point during a championship run? I mean, you could argue so did the 2010 team,
Exactly. I don't think it's unreasonable to expect a handful of these players that were contributors last year to get better. They're not in their 5th or 6th year. It's not like, you can't, Rodgers, for example. I mean, but like Rodgers is going to do what Rodgers does. He's like, even if he has a great year, he's already done
He's good.
That. Yeah.
He's good for a couple wins on his own. I mean, that's what having Aaron Rodgers does for you. Like, that's why I could never pick them. Like, this morning on the radio, I got asked about the Vegas win total being 9, and I'm taking the over by 1 game. I'm saying 10-6 this year. I think that's about where they land. And like at 9, I would never pick this team to go 8-8. And could they? Sure. But more often than not, Aaron Rodgers is going to figure something out to win them a couple football games. And that's good enough to push them over 9 wins for me.
I also think they have an advantage COVID-wise because they do have the nucleus back. Everyone's all up on Tampa Bay. Maybe they have a lot of names, but it might take until week 5 for them to figure it out. I know they've been doing the Tom Brady training thing, whatever that means. But yeah, this is like classic Philadelphia Eagles from when they just signed all
the dream team, baby.
Dream team,
no doubt.
And maybe Tampa Bay is fine, but I would rather take a team that's played a whole year together, and I can see them, the Packers, winning a couple early games, solely based off the fact that, they're more ready to go. Like Minnesota, they have more moving pieces,
Oh, yeah.
That first
they're replacing a lot more, no doubt.
Yeah, so and they may be solid, but are they really ready to play an NFL game as a cohesive unit in 10 days? I don't know. I'll take my money on the Packers, a team that really kind of has all their starters. Obviously, right tackle is a question mark. But they seem
that is probably more. I mean, a lot's been made of the Martin injury, and obviously the Billy Turner news came out yesterday. But to me, that is kind of the one overhanging issue. And you heard Rodgers yesterday talk about how unsettling, really unsettling, whatever the quote was about the right tackle spot. And yeah, that's legitimate. That's a concern right there. Why Jared Valdir hasn't been called, I don't know.
Right. Well, I mean,
there's got to be something there.
Maybe because they feel okay about it, right?
They must. They obviously signed Wagner over him, so they must like what they see from the right tackle there.
So I mean, I'm gonna and Goody I trust for the time being when it comes
there you
to the
go.
right tackle position.
All right, let me ask you this. Because you are a diehard Packers fan. That is very apparent to anyone who follows you on game day, anyone who follows your Twitter feed in general. How do you go about? Because this is something obviously I'm on Twitter a lot, but I'm usually working on creating content or doing something for Cheesehead TV. What do you do as a Packers fan, other than obviously we know each other through Twitter, but other than, say, my Twitter feed or Cheesehead TV's Twitter feed, how do you go about consuming your Packers content? I'm always really curious about where people go to find out news about the team, analysis about the team, and just general vibe around the team.
I mean, I follow all of you guys, all the local stuff. I mean, I grew up with, JS Online, and I'll still tune into Homer Homer's
oh my
show.
gosh, Homer gets a shout out. I love it.
I grew up. I mean, my dad listened to Homer when I was a kid. I've golfed with Homer before.
He's hilarious.
I've always been a Homer fan. So like even now, I'll it's the you can
the
listen
internet.
online.
You can listen whenever you want.
You can listen online, so I'll still listen to Homer. But like a lot of just all the local, all you guys doing what you're doing. It's that's the reason I started using Twitter way back when was to follow the Packers. So I just
you sound like me. Exactly. Like I remember it came out. I think it was at South by Southwest. I don't remember. There's some conference where it kind of like debuted, and I remember reading about it and thinking, God, that's dumb. And then a buddy of mine was on it. He was like, "Oh no, I get all the Packers stuff there." And I was like, "Oh, that sounds cool."
Yeah, I was like, "This."
So that's literally why I hopped on.
Yeah, it's like where Packer news hits first, and so. Yeah. That's how I do it. I definitely prefer the local coverage over the national media when it certainly comes to the Packers. And so, I mean, a lot of training camps, I'm sitting and I'm literally I follow the local guys. So I'll be sitting on my phone just refreshing. Oh, yeah. My feed.
Corey and I used to do like watch parties for Twitter feeds for practice. Like back in the day when we first started the site, we would have like, what was it called? There was a program called Cover It Live, which would have like the curated tweets of whatever list you made. And then there would be a comment section. And we would literally have live like gig performance, whatever, during whenever practice was. So rather than everyone just following on Twitter, it was like, let's all get together and comment on the tweets. Not like there was no footage of it. It was just, we're going to comment about tweets. That was in our heyday of being total geeks.
It's
Good
a
times.
lot of fun. And I will, after each Packer game, I usually will either turn into Homer or there's another local one. I have a
this year you're going to be watching the Cheesehead TV postgame show on YouTube.
There we go. I'll do that.
So you go. There you go.
And I have a buddy from back home. I mean, I have a lot of buddies from back home, but I have one buddy who's as diehard as I am, and usually we'll talk before and after each game. About
got to do it. You got to have your check-in. Yeah, I think everybody has a check-in guy. No doubt about it.
So I got my check-in guy, and I love it. I'm as committed as anyone. So there's usually, I will say, by like week 3, I can name all 53 guys.
I mean, that's better than some people on the beat. I won't name names, but that's pretty good. All right.
I might butcher a first name here or there, but I can.
Let's pull back real quick. I'm talking to Nick Viall, talking football, talking Packers. Let's take your 30,000-foot view. I was talking a little bit before about the Vegas win total for the year being set at 9. Where do you think – give me your prediction heading into week 1. Where do you think this team is headed record-wise, and how do you think it ends as far as do they make the playoffs? If they do make the playoffs, what happens when they get there?
Well, like I said, I'm bullish, so I'm going to definitely say they make the playoffs. I mean, anything's possible. It's the NFL, injuries, but I'm expecting big things. If I think they're going to be in the conversation in January for a legitimate Super Bowl contender. I think they're going to be a scary team. I think, I think it comes down to, I think there's a mental hurdle for them, for the Niners, not only for
that's
the players,
probably
I
true.
think the coaches. Maybe one of those years where they need the Niners to lose to someone else.
Exactly. Hey, no shame in it. No shame. You get there however you can.
Yeah. So, but I do. I really do. I think there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic about this team. I mean, the net, it's just all the things that like the analytics and like the close games.
I just love dismissing analytics. I love it.
No, I love it. I mean, I like the analytics. I think it's valuable, but like sometimes, when it comes to stats, you can look at stats a bunch of different ways, and
they can be manipulated. That is very true.
And what
say whatever you want.
And what stats don't take, stats are tell a story of the past, and for some insight of the future, and it doesn't take into account like players getting better, or people not making mistakes, or the coaches 100%. Coaching better, or the team just like what I'm saying. Like the analytics didn't say that the Niners were gonna like go to the Super Bowl. Yeah, they didn't. No one in the analytic team was being like, who my team is? Like, show me the guy.
49ers.
Yeah, right. Who said that? The 49ers are my team. But by week 10, it was a totally different narrative. So I just think there's a lot of reasons to think the Packers could or should be better. And that health to me is the biggest thing because
no question.
You know, there's so many good things that have come out of training camp in Rashan Gary and Rodgers and some of these young receivers. It's not all fool's gold. I don't think everything's going to translate, but like,
right.
You know,
no, that's a good way to put it and look at it. I think it's like, you know, you have to take everything with a grain of salt when you're talking about training camp, especially this year when it's so kind of different. But you absolutely can maybe not assume, but you can reasonably consider the fact that a number of these things will continue to develop throughout the season. And yeah, like you said, maybe one or more, a couple are fool's gold, as you put it. But I think for the most part, yeah, you can only assume that these professional players and coaches and these developments across the roster are going to continue through the regular season. I'm down with that.
I trust you guys too, because I honestly think, you know, you guys have been watching enough of practices where you're like, yeah, this guy's showing flashes, but I don't know if this is really going to translate. Versus like sometimes you guys talk about a guy, and you're just like, I mean, there's no sure thing, but you know, but watch out.
But exactly, and that's been Gary to me. It's like I really like Josh Jackson's start to camp. I think he got a little bit more uneven kind of later in the day, so to speak, but I still think he's better than he's shown so far in his career, which should only help the Packers. I think Lane Taylor has had a really good camp. I'm not completely sold on everybody touting his undefeated record in one-on-ones. I don't think one-on-ones really mean much, but he has played well at right guard.
This is a great time for me to ask you, what the hell are one-on-ones? I mean, I get that they're one-on-ones, but like, you guys will like, you know, some
list
I don't know,
the winners and the losers,
the records, and I'm just like, and some people compete more than others, and I'm just like, what is it? What can I tell from this?
And that's the thing. Like you'll notice, like David Bakhtiari, I think had 2 reps the entirety of doing one-on-ones this year. It's just determined by each coach, position coach. They'll send them out there essentially, and it's literally that. But the pass rusher has to get to a spot, and the guy will line up as though he is in line. If you're the offensive lineman, so if you're at a tackle spot, you line up on the edge. And you're going against an edge rusher. And the drill itself is overwhelmingly in favor of the rusher.
The rusher?
Because 100%. Because he can literally go anywhere. Because the thing with an offensive line, this is why I'm really kind of dismissive of one-on-ones in general. Yes, you can get your hands on a guy and control him and win the rep. But a lot of times, defensive lines are running games and stunts and trying to set you up for something later, etc. There's so much that goes into it that it's very rarely, not that it never happens, but it's very rare on any given down that you are literally just going mano a mano without especially help to yourself. Like, what is the protection call? What are you sliding left because you're going to roll right? Are you sliding left and then sending a back out there? Does the left guard know that he's got to slide over to help the tackle, or is the tackle expecting no help? Like, these are things that are in consideration each and every down that in a one-on-one training camp rep mean absolutely nothing.
Yeah. Or like how many times have we seen a rusher like beat an offensive lineman only for the quarterback just to step up and throw?
Well, exactly. Well, and that's the other thing. Like, if you beat him around the edge, well, who's to say the quarterback's going to be where you expect him to be?
Yeah.
So that's, to me, why I say it's like it's set up for the rusher to win not more often than not, but it does favor whoever's rushing the QB. That said, I think Lane did a great job. I think you've seen guys really step up in regards to like Tippa, the undrafted guy out of, I think it's Utah State. He had a really good summer. I don't think he's going to make the. I don't think he's going to make the squad, but I think he had a really good summer.
I was going to ask you about that. It seems like a lot of you guys have been like, the Packers drafted a handful of late round interior linemen, and it seems like they might have hit on a couple of those. Maybe not like this year in terms of. But
yeah, I think they're all. I mean, hell, what's the Stepanek or whatever his name is? I think he's destined for maybe IR even, because they can bring him back so easily this year.
So can I ask you a question? I know you and Tom Silverstein were pretty upset with Goody about not being able to.
See, now wait a second. I don't lump me in with Tom or the JS crew. Don't do that. They were way over the top in their disdain. I simply pointed out, and may I just, in my defense, I said I understood it from the team perspective, but I also thought it was kind of ridiculous.
So let me.
I can see both sides on this.
I'm curious because I'm a Packer fan, and while I appreciate as much information as I can get from you guys at training camp, like if it translates to like one more win, do whatever you need to do, man. You know, like and it is a weird year because if you believe in your draft, if you believe in your free agent signings after the draft, then you don't want you want to sneak as many guys onto the practice squad as possible.
Squad as you can. Yeah.
And you don't want to give any information. And like, if in a weird year,
I'm
all for it.
Okay, to their point, and I think again, I see both sides of this. I'll just say this: I think the big fear on the beat, and I think this is a legitimate fear, given the nature of the NFL. Maybe not the Packers in general, although they have been known to do this as well. Is in the history of the league. When access has been taken away or restricted, it is so very rare that it is then reinstated and or given back to the same level that it was. So there are guys on the beat who think we'll never be allowed in the locker room again. Like, now everything we do this year is all going to be virtual. There aren't any locker room sessions. There won't be any in-person questioning of coach or Rodgers after a game. It's all going to be on Zoom, etc. So I know Brian Gutekunst has said it's all going to go back to normal, quote unquote. Next year, this is just a once in a lifetime event, which obviously a pandemic is. However, it's a very real fear if you make your living going and getting those quotes. And if you are the conduit to the team for the public, now all of a sudden this team or any team starts to shrink the access, and they use this as an opportunity to then say next year, come training camp, oh, yes, you can tweet about X, Y, and Z, but still we don't want you to tweet about this anymore. So now all of a sudden they've eroded your access just a little bit and made it much more about exclusive rights for the team media people. And that's what they're trying to avoid on the outside.
I get that, but I think you make a good point. I just think the Packers, they're so reliant on just like, it's a bigger picture, like the community, their fans.
But that's what we're talking about here, though. It's like, but you can't lean into that aspect and then shut out the community.
I'm just saying, for this particular year, I understand.
Well, that's my point. I say for this year, I'm down. I totally get it. But if they try some bullshit next year, I will be the first to call them out.
Yeah, no, listen, because if you're having preseason games, it's just like, well, we'll figure it out, buddy. Yeah, like and now it's you really don't know what's going on. These other teams.
Right.
You have really no idea how the Packers drafts are doing. They're street free agents. You guys can mention, but are teams really going to go after a guy that they know very little about?
Make a waiver claim off of something they read on Twitter. That's the thing. Like, that's what the Packers are contending. And I guess ultimately, if that's the only information that's available, it's a possibility.
Yeah, so I would rather sneak a guy on the practice squad who's not ready, but I get that concern, but I was curious about that because I'm thinking like, I don't know, man, I get it,
I know, I understand it from a competitive balance standpoint. All right, I'm talking with Nick Viall. Nick, I can't thank you enough for hanging out, talking football, talking Packers with me. We'll do this again. What hell? In a couple of weeks, when the Packers have won a few games, we'll check back in.
Whenever you want, man. I can talk Packers whenever. We'll do a post game or something.
That'll be great. We'll have you call into the post game show. It'll be great.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Maybe after a loss, I'll really.
Well, it's always more popular after a loss. Yeah. No doubt.
Yeah. All right.